Okay. Hello, everybody. Again, thank you and welcome to our webinar, the Forum Group of the Good Practice Movement. So we present our empowerment series, Simple Tools. So this is webinar 5, Action Planning. So again, thank you very much. Next, Betty.
Yes, if I could just get this to move. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. There you are.
Okay, so I know Shanta said her first time there and not knowing what is this about. So the Good Practice Movement, we actually support a group of individuals who actually support a culture of continuous improvement in everything that we do, from family to work, everything that we do. We exchange knowledge and experiences and share some simple tools and techniques on how to achieve this continuous improvement. And we also try to recognize and take note of good practices and how do these good practices that we are talking about, how does it contribute to sustainable development, whether it's again within your home, within your workplace, and hopefully at the country at large.
And we must stress here, Binta, that we are supported by the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards. Very
Yes, we are
important.
indeed supported by the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards, as
Mhm.
Betty actually indicated. So here we have the members of the forum group. We have Samantha Ernest, whose specialty is human resource, Marina Gomez Baptist. She specializes in accounting, finance, and small business management. Jacqueline Messiah Simeon. She's a social and gender analyst, gender and social inclusion specialist. Brandon Seeley actually works in standards, works at the Bureau of Standards. Jessica Edward, her specialty, Office Administration, Human Resource. Randy Montoute, specialty is information technology. Leah Gard, small business management and marketing. Trisha Joseph, her specialty is standards again, but conformity assessment and compliance. Pearl Alcindor, project management, and Jessica Jacoby, special education teacher, disability advocate, and consultancy. And I am Binta Ernest. I am a public policy specialist, specializing in human rights and gender.
And Binta, can we see you live? Can we
Oh,
see you live?
let's see. I know home.
There you go.
Anyone see me? Okay. So this is Binta Ernest. A little bit different. The hair is shorter. Yes. So a few housekeeping rules. Ensure that microphones are muted. And I think we are the ones controlling the microphone at this moment. And it will be unmuted during the question and answers portion of the presentation. Questions and comments are definitely welcomed, and we want the chat to be blowing up. So be in the chat, put some questions, put any thoughts that you may have. During the question and answer session, we ask that you raise your hand, put the icon for raising your hand to indicate your readiness to speak. And please put a Q so we know it's a question and it's not a comment. And as always, just be respectful of others. So this is actually the fifth and final webinar in this series, which is the Empowerment Series, which took place from 2023 to 2025. The first webinar would actually be on continuous improvement, the plan, do, check, and act cycle presented in 2023, June. The results chain and logic model presented in November 2023. Addressing risk presented in April 2024. Setting smart objectives presented in October 2024. And now we have the action plan being presented today. And as Betty indicated, the webinars are uploaded onto the Facebook group. So when you enter the Facebook group, the Good Practice Movement, you can actually get all the webinars and learn from these webinars. So our main facilitator, who has been speaking throughout, is Ms. Betty Comby. She's a managing director of Moz Inc., a company specializing in quality management and its related services. She's well known for her simple, practical, and engaging approach. Very engaging. She's the author of the book Rolls Bar, Working for Repeat Business, available at Triple N Book Center in St. Lucia and on Amazon as well. So welcome, Betty. Thank you
Thank,
very much. Yeah.
thank you so much, Binta. And Binta should have also mentioned that Trisha is her co-host. Trisha, maybe we can just see you so people know you and they know that you're monitoring the chat. So there is Trisha. And
Hi.
there you go. And every now and again, Trisha will interject because she's monitoring the chat and let me know what's going on in the chat. Thank you so much, Trisha. Okay.
You're welcome.
And so we have Brandon. We have Brandon. Let's talk about who's doing what. And so we have Brandon. Brandon, let's see you. And Brandon is going to be letting people into the room. Brandon, can we see you if possible?
No, it's not possible tonight.
Okay.
I need to stay in another forum.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you. Okay, so let's delve into it. And so we're going to talk about action plan and action planning. We're going to look at a sample template. We look at an actual example. And this is an example we worked on as a group. We're going to have the question and answer segment, at which point you will be unmuted and you will be able to talk to us. We want to hear your voices. It's just that while we're making the presentation, we would prefer if people stay muted. Otherwise, we avoid all those background noises when people turn on their mics. And then we will talk about upcoming forums, as well as we will call you to join the group. And at the end, we will ask for some feedback on the session, and we will close. The plan is that we end at 8 p.m. And I think Ira can probably attest to that we tend to stick with our end time. Ira, you're attesting to that? Ira has said that she has been at almost all the webinars. Trisha, is Ira attesting to this? Okay, we're moving on. And so action planning, she did very good. Thank you, Ira. We appreciate that. And I think we have somebody trying to get admitted, Brandon. It's appearing on my screen. Okay, so action planning. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I mean, that's a proverb that we grew up with. Okay, so we know the importance of planning without a doubt. So what is an action plan? It is a document, and notice how I stress the word document, because these plans cannot be in our heads. These plans have to be either typed out on paper, right, for easy reference for everybody to be familiar with it. So it is a document. It can be an e-document, a hard document, but it must be a document. And it lists what steps or tasks are to be taken to achieve a goal or objective. As simple as that. The stress here, it lists the steps or tasks. You know, my niece uses the phrase actionable steps. And so that's what the action's about. The actions are the steps or the tasks to be taken. Okay, so if you're looking at an action plan and you cannot see steps or tasks to be taken, it is not yet an action plan. That is the important part of the action plan, and you support it with a lot of other information. And we will be talking about that other information. And so when it comes to action plan questions, we're looking at the basic questions, and we have what we call the GPM recommended questions. And by the way, Jackie, you want to show, must mention that Jackie will be assisting me. I don't know if Pearl is here, but Jackie is here. Jackie, you want to show your face? So every now and again, Jackie will interject. There is Jackie. Hi, that's right. So Jackie will be coming in as necessary throughout the presentation. So we go on to the basic questions when you're preparing an action plan. Is first, what is your goal or your objective? Now, we're not going to get into the semantics of if it's a goal or if it's an objective. It is something you're trying to achieve. Some people call it objective, some people goal. The distinction then make that a goal is broader than an objective, but we're not going to, whatever they call it, we're saying just identify what is it. Whether you call it your goal or objective, identify that. Then what work is to be done, and that's where the activities, the actions, the steps, the tasks come in. To achieve this objective, what work has to be done, right? Then once you identify the work, then you should be able to know what do you need to do the work, and that's where your resources come in. But you know, work doesn't get done until somebody is responsible. So state who is responsible. And the responsible person doesn't necessarily be the person who is doing the work, but it is the person who is accountable for the work. Keep that in mind. The responsible person can delegate, but in the final analysis, when a status report is required for this objective, this responsible person is supposed to be able to answer to that. What is the time frame, right? And finally, how much will it cost your budget? So this is the simplest action plan that you can come across. It has an objective or goal, the activities to be done, the resources you need, who is responsible, what is the time frame, and how much will it cost the budget. However, what we're doing is we're saying, let's do a little more. Let's make this action plan a little more comprehensive. And that's just a little more, because we can even make it more comprehensive than that. But we thought there were important things we needed to put in there. So we're saying, start off with what is your why? Why are you trying to achieve this goal objective? In project management, we say, what is your rationale? What is your justification? For those of you who are familiar with the work of Simon Sinek, you will know Simon Sinek says he has a book entitled Start with Why, right? And if that's not enough, there's the German philosopher who says, he who has a why can endure anyhow. Jackie, what do you think of that one? He who has a why can endure anyhow. Jackie, talk to us.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that because the why is so foundational. For me, I often say to my team, your why is your big picture, the biggest picture. Yes. Why are we doing this? Why do we come into this center every day?
Yes.
So if we know, because like today was a pretty bad day, and so if you know your why, it allows you to keep that focus and move that process forward. So big issue is knowing the why.
Yes, it is that purpose. What is the purpose? Why is it important? So very important. So we say start off with what is your why, then go on to what is your goal objective. Then we go further. We say now describe that output or deliverable. If you achieve that objective, what will it look like? We say describe it. Describe it so that when you see it, you will know you achieved it. Describe it so that it can be verified. Describe it, especially if you're working a team, that all of you can see that end result. Describe it, right? We then added to that, it is Stephen Covey who says, the 7 habits of highly effective people. The first habit is be proactive. So we say, what could go wrong? Identify your risk, but also your strategies. And we did a whole session on that. For those of you who did attend that session of addressing risk, again, that webinar has been uploaded onto our Facebook group. You can check it out. This was a really good webinar. The first habit of highly effective people is to be proactive. You need to anticipate what could go wrong and come up with strategies to address this. I mean, Binta spoke about my book, Rolls Back, and one of the R's in my Rolls Back is risk. You must understand the risk. And then I go further and I say, but identifying the risk is the first step. The most important step is the strategy to address the risk. And so after we introduced those 3 new things, then we just went back to what work has to be done, which is the activities or your actions. What do you need? Your resources. Who is responsible? What is the time frame? How much it will cost, or your budget. Okay, so we are recommending that in preparing your action plan, you include those extra questions. What is your why? Why are you doing it? 3, what is the description of the output or deliverable? That way, when you see it, you know that's it. That way, if you're working with a team, you're all on the same page as to what you're trying to achieve. And we say, like anything else, Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. You need to anticipate and have strategies in place for that. Any questions or comments in the chat, Trisha? Talk to me.
No questions.
Okay. By the way, guys, feel free to interject. Just write your comments in the chat, okay? And Trisha will pick it up and share it with us. We're moving on to a template. So we gave you the questions, and now we're just taking the questions and we put it in the template. And so there it is. We say, what is your why? Because he who has a why can endure the how. State your why. In project management, I tell you, we call it, what is the justification? What is the rationale for your project? This is about the why. Why are you doing it? Come up with your goal or objective. Again, we're not getting caught up in the semantics, whether it's a goal or objective. These things mean something you're trying to achieve. Okay? And so output or deliverable. If you're trying to achieve something, when you achieve it, describe it. What is it going to look like? So we said, give a description of your output or your deliverable. What are the risks and the strategies associated with trying to achieve that objective? What are the activities involved? Yes, somebody's trying to talk to me. No? From that, what are the resources? Who is responsible? Somebody must be responsible if it has to get done. Somebody, there's a time frame, there's a budget and cost. So this is a sample action plan template. Again, we're telling you if you do the research out there, some of them are more basic than these. But we think that these key elements are important and we included them. What is your why? Describe the output and anticipate the risk and strategies. Very important. Okay, so we're moving on to an example at this point. Now, what we have found is that when people go into action planning, they tend to bring in a whole lot of strategies. And so we are suggesting pre-action planning. So we suggest pre-action planning, strategize, and then go into the action plan specific to one of the strategies. Too many times when people do an action plan, it's confusing and it's complicated because they have not gotten down to the actual actions pertaining to what they're trying to achieve, because they're putting a lot of other things in there. And that is because they're thinking of a lot of other things. So we say that's fine. Think of a lot of things, but start off with a pre-action planning document. We call it the strategizing document. So here's an example. What do you want? So you want land to build your house. Okay. So how can you get this land to build your house? A number of things you can do. You can buy land. You can rent or lease land. You can squat. You can inherit land. You can advocate for crown or government land. And I'm sure if I ask you, or maybe you can tell me, is there something else you can do to get that land to build your house? Is anything else occurring to you? In the chat, anybody? Is there anything else you can do to get that land? So maybe you come up with another strategy, initiative, or action. So these are your strategies, your initiatives that you can do. Now, in these things, let's see what you are in control of. So buy land, I would say you're in control of that. Rent or lease land, you're in control of that. You can choose to squat or not to squat on land, but remember the risk associated with that. Inherit land, you're in control of that, right? That is somebody leaving land to you. So no guarantees you're going to get that land. So you might have some relative that have a good bit of land, but you're waiting for that relative to die.
Nettie?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, go ahead, Binta.
No, I was saying Versia has a nice one. Marry somebody who has land.
There you
Yeah.
go. You
Yes,
take
I started laughing at
That's
that one.
right. Lovely one. Marry somebody who has land. Why not? You want land. But even then, remember you're not in control of the marry somebody, because it's not just you married. The person have to choose to marry you. Okay? So when we look at these, and you tell me in the chat, tell me which of these you can say you are in control of, including taking into consideration the marrying somebody who has land. Which of these you can say you are most in control of? Let's see in the chat. So talk to me. What are they saying now, Trisha?
Carissa said buy land.
Yes, you definitely, because that's up to you, right? You might not have the money, but it's up to you to find the money. So yes, you can, that is something that you can be in control of. Anything else?
Yes, both Carissa and Versia said buy land.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you think you're in control
Vanilla
of?
said rent.
That's right. You can
Buy
rent.
and squat. Roger said buy land.
Uh-huh. Anybody else? So let's look at the buy land versus the rent land. And again, it's what is your long-term vision for yourself? So you buy land, the land is yours, right? That's land you can pass on to your children and your grandchildren. If you rent or lease land, the land is not yours. So you're paying money towards something, but it's never going to be yours unless you, at a eventual point, you come to some contractual arrangement with the person who is renting or lease. So if it's land that you want to be able to pass on, then you want to have your own land. What is the issue with squatting on land? Anybody? Squatting on land. We have no issues with squatting on land?
Sarah
Ira
said
said
squatting
not
is not legal.
That's right. That's
Versia
right.
said will be evacuated.
There you go. There you go. Right. Now, what about inherit land?
But also keep in line if you squat for a certain number of years and the owner of the land never asks you for any rent, it automatically can become yours. So squatting is not necessarily a bad thing. You may end up with land you didn't pay for.
No, but it's still a case of it's a risky thing because it's not yours, you can be asked to move at any point. This is you building your house. If you're going to be
Betty, why are you trying to persuade me not to go and find a piece of land to squat on?
Jackie, I am telling you, look at your risk. Look at your risk. And so I think we will agree here that if what we want is a piece of land to build our house, and we want to ensure that house is available until the end of our days and something to pass on, then we probably want to buy land, right? So we're going to work with that one. We're going to work with, say we decide to buy land. So what do we want? We want land to build. Yes, go ahead.
Michelle had an input.
Yes.
She said financial losses. Squatters can cause property damage, requiring owners to spend money on repairs. She also said they can also lead to loss of rental income if owners intend to list the property.
I can just imagine. I am telling you, we know that squatting has a whole lot of risk. So for anybody who goes that route, you're taking a big chance there. Keep that in mind. That's just risky business. Okay, so we're going to go with the buy land. And so this is the action plan is. So again, the objective or the goal is to buy land. Why do you want to buy the land? What was the why? The why is you want to build your house. This is not land for you to go and farm, right? This is not land for you to raise chickens. This is a land for you to build your house, right? So your goal is to buy land. Why you want to buy that land? What is your why? Because he who has a why can endure anyhow. You want to buy land to build your house. So this land you want to buy, this is your objective, to buy land. Describe what that land, visualize it, see. And so you visualize it and you say, listen, I want a piece of land between 3,000 and 5,000 square feet. I want the land to be flat. I want the land in Babono. And for those of you not in St. Lucia who don't know St. Lucia, Babono is an area in the northeast of St. Lucia. They want it in a housing community. So they want to go in any bush to build their house. They want some housing community. They want to have neighbors, right? They want to be close to public transportation. They want to be the land to be equipped with utilities. They want the cost of the land to be no more than about $13 per square foot in EC. This is describing the deliverable. So if, for instance, you're not there and somebody is looking for a piece of land for you, they can use that as their guide. This is what you're looking for. Is there anything else you would want to add to that description? Any key thing that you think is missing? Anybody? With regard to the description of this output or deliverable. That is such an important, it's like the criteria. This is like representing the criteria, the specifications for your output or your deliverable. And that way, once you see it, you can easily verify it. Is it between 3,000 and 5,000 square feet? Is it flatland? Is it in the Babono area? Is it in a housing community? Is it close to public transportation? Is it equipped with utilities? What is the cost? We can't spend more than $13 per square feet. Okay, again, describe your output. Then let's go into the risk. Now, I have mentioned just 2 risks there, but I am sure my people have a whole lot of risks to talk about, and we will ask you tell us some other risks. First of all, the risk is to buy land means you need money. So lack of finance is a risk. But remember, I told you, it's not just the risk, you have to look at the strategy. So a strategy for lack of finance is to apply for a loan. That's one strategy. There will be other strategies. The land might be prone to flooding or other issues. So a strategy is to visit the site, talk to potential neighbors, and seek expert opinion. These are the things that can go wrong with you buying that land. Now, my question to you participants, think of what else can go wrong. You know, I know of one person who is complaining of they have now settled, they have their land and their house, but they're next to a neighbor who has a chicken coop. You can just imagine that. The stench of that, they have called in Ministry of Health and everything, and still that situation has not been resolved. Talk to me, what else can go wrong in you purchasing that land?
Betty,
Yes.
I'm looking at you seek in the community of Barbano, which to me seems to be quite a bit of an agricultural community.
Yes.
So you may go in and start out with not having that kind of neighbor, but it happens after.
There you
So
go.
even as you're thinking of Barbano, you have to think of the potential risk of what is not there right now, but
Right.
what can actually happen in the future as that community develops, because we know
Yes.
it's usually an agricultural kind of community.
That's right.
So you
That's
really need to think about that. Do you really want the possibility of a chicken farm next door or pig farm next door or something in the future?
Well, that's another thing, is that the fact that you're going into a housing community, we're assuming that you now have backup. You know, it's not you alone that will be complaining about the chicken farm. So it seems to me somebody would be less reluctant to put up a chicken
Yes.
farm in a housing community than they put it where you alone on a piece of land and they come and they set up next to you. So keep that
Okay.
in mind, that neighbors can add value to what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
Very
Which also means you have to really do your research properly
Exactly.
in terms of the zoning of the park.
Exactly.
Because it may be houses up there, but it doesn't say it's exclusively for houses.
True.
So if the zoning
Very-
doesn't say that and you don't know
That's
that, you could have a
right.
problem, huh?
That's right. That's right. That research is so important. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? I mean, some of you have bought land and you have had situations. Share with us. Trisha, we have anybody sharing as to all the things that can go wrong in buying land?
Yes, we do. So,
Yes,
Kashif
let's say.
said lack of security, vacant land can be more vulnerable to trespassing or illegal activities, limited tax benefits. Compared to owning a home, there are generally fewer tax advantages associated with owning vacant land.
Okay.
Kashel also said high initial cost. The purchase price of land itself can be substantial depending on the location and the location, size, and potential. Brody said, aren't there regulations that prohibits this in terms of how close you are?
With as far as
How
the
close
chicken
you
coop?
are to the neighbors, etc.
Yes. There's supposed to be some boundary limitations when it comes to building. But the land is next to land. But they're
Yeah.
supposed, so I don't know how much is being enforced. Because even the thing about chicken coop, Ministry of Health, as far as I know, there are regulations related to that. Whereas the enforcement of the law is very important as well. Okay, so we get the idea. But again, like I said, it is one thing to identify the risk. The more important thing is to determine a strategy to address the risk. Okay, and so we go into activities. So we have risk and strategies. Now, remember we said lack of finance, we said apply for a loan. So we should see that being captured in activities. And that is the thing, you do those strategies to be able to utilize them in your activities. So we said with regard to the land might be prone to flooding and have other issues, you want to visit that site. You want to visit that site, you want to talk to neighbors, you want to seek expert opinion. Keep that in mind. So because we were saying these are strategies, we want to ensure that we employ those strategies in our activities. So the activities, and let's go through some activities step by step. Remember, these are actionable steps. And notice how it is phrased. It is phrased as an active verb. What do? You research the process and available land. You're asking questions, you're going around, you're talking to people, you're doing your research. You contact real estate, you contact the government because the government sometimes have land that they're selling. You contact a seller. These are things you do. You identify the land. Once you have identified, you visit and you evaluate the site. Remember, that was a strategy we had decided on to make sure that we're getting land that is suitable for our purposes. So you visit and you evaluate the site. You may be bringing people to assist with the evaluation. You apply for a loan. You don't have the funds. The strategy was apply for a loan. You apply for a loan. In applying for the loan, you have to now meet all legal and financial institution requirements. So there are legal requirements with regard to purchasing land, and there the financial institution would have their requirements. Then you access the funds. The funds are now available to you. Access the funds, and then you buy the land. Now, what I want you to notice, and this is an error people make, you do not stop the activities until you get to the point of what it is you want to achieve. What you wanted to achieve was to buy land. So the last activity would be to buy land. Sometimes people get confused and they figure out that I wanted to buy the land to build a house. That is true. But this action plan was specifically about buying the land, not about building the house. So some people tend to want to go on and on, but no, building the house will be a separate action plan. This action plan was just for buying the land. So once you get to the activity where you are buying the land, you can stop. The land is now yours, right? Then you go on to your resources. What do you need? The other thing is realizing all of these things are connected. So your resources, if we're talking about research and going around, you need time to do that. So if you know in the next 6 months, you're going to be very busy at work, plus you have family duties, you just don't have the time. This is probably not a good time to do that. You need time to do the research, right? You need to have cash on hand. And that's something I think people forget is that you think, okay, I'm taking a loan. But even to take the loan, the banks want you to put down some money. Even to get the documents from the different institutions, you need to have some cash on hand. So cash on hand is important, even if you're taking a loan. Then you have the documents you need, your land register, your survey plan, your valuation by your surveyor, your deed of sale, compliance letters from NIC and Inland Revenue, and you need a lawyer. This is a legal transaction. A lawyer have to come into play there, right? Be it the bank's lawyer, your lawyer, but a lawyer comes into play. So again, by just looking at the activities, you can pull out, right, the resources related to it. So the research, the process, that means you need time to do that, right? Contact the real estate, the government also, that's again time. You need to visit and evaluate the site. You need to apply for the loan. And so that's where so in this case, so you'd have to identify a bank, well, you'd have to a financial institution, right? So a resource here could be, we could add a financial institution. And you need to meet all legal and financial institution requirements. And the financial institution requirements, they would need the land register, the survey plan, the valuation by the surveyor. You need to get a deed of sale. And legally, the government says you must have compliance letters from NIC and Inland Revenue. We have somebody who is talking. Winter, we have some background noise. Could we mute somebody? Okay, and who is responsible? The potential house owner. And what's the time frame? 6 months. And there is the budget. Fees related to acquiring the necessary documents, processing the loan, legal transactions, the cost of the land. All of those fees would have to be calculated to tell you how much money you're looking at in the final analysis. So this is an example of an action plan that the GPM is promoting. Any questions, any comments, any additions?
Betty, responsible party.
Yes.
I've seen situations where somehow someone setting out to buy land somehow thinks it's the responsibility of the real estate agent. And I like that you said in the up front, you are the person buying the land. It's your risk. Everybody else is a resource.
Yes.
Every other person you engage is a resource. It's not their responsibility. So
That's right.
Don't expect the real estate agent, don't expect the bank, don't expect anybody else to be pushing this to fulfill your why.
Yes.
All of that must be your resources, and understand solely this is your land, this is your purchase, it is your responsibility.
Well said, Jackie.
That sometimes falls on the wayside because you're waiting on the lawyer to do something, and you're waiting on the real estate agent to get back to you, and so on. Don't wait. Go out and stomp the ground and get it done.
It's because you want your house built, right? But now you have a time frame of 6 months to get that land. So you can now start talking about building your house. Yes, well said, Jackie. Well said. Yes, talk to me.
From the chat, from Denise.
Yes, Denise.
Informative session, a thorough process of making a decision, can you use this framework for any action you are planning, such as choosing a life partner?
Oh, yes. Now, Denise.
Betty, that sounds right up your street, girl.
Now, you know, Denise, if time had committed us, because we have a lot of other things to do, but we would have probably done it for the life partner thing. But you are right. You are very right. And even with getting your life partner, you have to ask yourself, why? Why do I want a life partner?
Because if you know why, then you know who you're looking for.
Yeah, and you can endure the how. If you
Yes.
know the why, you can endure the how. Now, you know what about this? Now, what I want to bring across to you is how this action plan is related to all those other webinars we have done. So, for instance, one of the webinars we did was the PDCA webinar. That you plan, you do, you check, and you act to improve. And so this is a plan, right? In the plan is saying what has to be done, right? But you have to be monitoring the plan. You have to be monitoring and act to improve. And so usually sometimes in a plan, you will put a status column. And in the status column is where you're doing your evaluation. Where am I at? What else has to be done? Okay, so that's something else you can add to the plan to make sure you go through the whole PDCA cycle. This idea of a results chain. The results chain is about beginning with the end in mind, right? And this is, what's your why? Your why is to build your house, right? And you have broken down, what is your objective? What is your goal? It is to buy land. So you're starting with the end in mind and you're describing it. You're describing your output or your deliverable. In the addressing risks, we looked at risk and strategies, and there it is. We're looking at risk and strategies. Then we spoke about SMART objectives. Remember that? The final webinar we did before this was SMART objectives. And this allows your objective to be SMART. Because for one, you have the objective. You have made it very specific. 3,000 to 500 square feet flat land in Barbono, in a housing. You have made it very specific. Is it achievable? Well, can you deliver on these activities? Once you can deliver on these activities, then it's achievable. Nothing wrong with that, right? Is it relevant? And that is where the why comes in. What is it aligned to? Is it aligned to a broader goal? Is it aligned to a vision? What is that purpose? It's all about what is that purpose you're trying to achieve? So keep that in mind. So it is relevant and it has a time frame. So what I love is, and I think it was, I don't know if it was you, Jacqueline, who said, let's do this last. And I didn't realize how doing it last meant we were bringing in all the other webinars into play. And I don't know if Ira can talk to that because Ira has been through the other webinars. I don't know if Ira wants to say something about Ira. What's your take on that? I am saying that you are seeing the connection to all these previous webinars. Let's hear from Ira. Or anybody else. But yes, Denise, you are very right. So you can use this action plan for anything you want. Anything you want. But we're saying, start with your why. Because he who has a why. Yes, what Ira said?
Ira said, yes, it is, and it has a link. Yes. And she said everything explains the other. It flows.
Yes, and all of that's a good point Ira is making there, is we have to see the connection, right? So this is the goal or objective. You want to buy the land. Why you want to buy the land? There is the why there. Okay. So that means why is it relevant to you? Why is it important to you? In project management, we say, what is your rationale? What is your justification? You capture that. Right? Then you describe the output. You describe the deliverable in detail. You're setting out the criteria, the specifications, right? So if anybody's helping you, they already know exactly what you're looking for. But we know anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And so those risks and those strategies are so important. And one question I know I've been asked is, why do you put risk and strategies so early? Should it not follow activities? I want you to remember that risk management is dynamic, right? So you never finish identifying all your risks. But from the time you know what you're trying to achieve, you already start knowing what can go wrong. And then when you start listing your activities, you see more things that can go wrong. So you can update your risk and strategies column. Very important. Risk and strategies, this is dynamic. And your activities introduce extra risk. But from the time you know what you're trying to achieve, you already start anticipating some risk. And then you follow the resources from the activities. But somebody has to be responsible. You cannot stress that. And this is your house. This is you wanted to build your house. This is not somebody else's house. So you be the responsible person, okay? Very important. So go after the lawyer and go after the real estate and go after the government. You cannot blame people when they're not pushing it if you yourself not pushing it. You are the one to push it. And Jackie, well said for that. You give yourself
Ira,
a
I
time
have a
frame.
question.
Yes, Iris.
She said, 1 minute. So when we say risk and assumption, is
Yes.
that assumption the strategy?
No. And an assumption, let's talk about there are three things you normally get. You'll get assumption, you'll get constraints. So normally assumption, risk, assumptions, and constraints come together. So let's make the distinction. So the risk is an anticipation that the risk is something that can happen in the future. That's what the risk is. Something that can happen in the future. The constraint is an existing limitation. So an existing limitation can be the amount of money you have at hand right now. An existing limitation is because your family is in Babono, you have no choice but stay in Babono because you have children and they need to help you with the children. So constraints are existing limitations. So your time frame can be existing limitation. Your budget can be an existing limitation. Assumptions are things that you need to consider to be true, but might not necessarily be true. So for instance, for you to be able to deliver on that, an assumption must be that there is land, flat land available in Babono. That Babono has land. That's the assumption you're going on. For you to be specific as to say, is in Babono, I want the land. You are making an assumption that there is land available in Babono. That have to be true for you to deliver on that. But it might not necessarily be true. Ira, does that help? So your assumptions can introduce risk, but the risk, it has not happened yet.
Ira says, yes, it helps. Denise also asked,
Yes.
you may have more than one rationale. Should you
Yes.
focus on the main one only?
No, I would say it doesn't matter. I would say it's your why. It is yours. You decide. It is your why. Jackie, you want to take that? I'm not sure how to answer. Again, if the whys are related, if it's coming down to this one thing is going to answer all my whys, I don't see why there's a need. But remember, this action plan, just one point here. This action plan is not about the why. This action plan is about the goal or objective related to the why. Keep that in mind. So you need to focus on one goal or objective in an action plan.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jackie.
I was just about to say that. If you have more than one rationale, are you talking about the same thing?
Yes.
So you have to determine when you look at these 1, 2, 3 things, go back to the big picture why, and see which of those most fits in with the why that you have. And then if each one is different, then you're probably talking about 3 different action plans.
Yeah. But
Because each is a different something you're looking for.
Yes.
If you're looking for one thing, it's one action plan. So keep in mind a rationale for you shouldn't have 3 rationales for one why.
Well, you can't.
What it can be is a number of things that are feeding into your why. So be careful that you don't see them as separate entities when they're probably all the same thing. If they're really not meshing, they're different things, you need different action plans.
Yeah, but the important thing there is the action plan is not about the why.
The why.
It is about the goal or your objective. So you want to handle that one at a time.
One at a time.
The mistake we make. The mistake we make is we're trying to handle a whole lot of goals and objectives together with one action plan. Each goal or objective has to have its action plan. And that action plan is connected to a why. Now, the truth of when you think of your rationale can be very comprehensive. where this thing of owning your, for instance, when you have your why, okay, you want to build a house, then you can ask the question, but why you want to build a house, right? I want to build a house because all our life we were renting, right? But why all your house you were renting? And there's another reason. So it can go on. So it is possible that your rationale can be very comprehensive and not as simply as saying, I just want to build a house. But it is about, this action plan is about one goal, one objective, taking it right across. Then you go on to another goal, objective, and you take it right across. Denise, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's why I was saying, careful that what you're calling your rationale is just a series of things that leads to one thing. So you may think it's different, but you just went through that process. Why are you building a house? Because I was always renting. Why are we always renting? Because I couldn't save up until this point to get that deposit money going. And so that, but all of it still comes back to I want to buy
build a
a house.
house. Yes.
Exactly. So you
Yes.
you just try to understand
Yes.
that.
Yeah, and I think a point, Jack, is that this alignment, and that is where we are feeling a lot, is we're preparing those plans and we're not ensuring there's alignment throughout. And once there's alignment, it's going to work out. That alignment is key. Trisha, any other comments?
Denise just said, okay, thanks.
Okay, but again, to just reiterate what Denise said, that this action plan can work for anything that you want to achieve, period. Anything you want to achieve, get in the habit of preparing an action plan. I cannot stress that enough. Thank you for that, Denise. And so at this point, we come up to questions and answers. Binta, all yours. Binta and Trisha.
Hi, everyone. Very, very informative. And I'm so glad that the chat has been very active and everyone has been participating. So based on what Betty has actually presented, your comments in the group and everybody's comments, any questions, any burning questions you think deserve you want some answers for, or you have any comments that you think is pertinent to the discussion? So far, no one, Betty. So we're just waiting to see if anybody's thinking of any questions.
And like we said, these plans can be even more comprehensive. For those of you who have done project management, then communication can be an aspect of the plan, and putting on what will you check. And even like when we talk about what's measurable, when we talk about SMART objectives, we talk about measurable objectives. There were things that were measurable in there. Measurable was the size of the land. Measurable was the cost. Anything that has a value is measurable. The cost of the land. Measurable was the time frame you set within 6 months, right? And then you would have come up with a budget as well. And so all that was measurable.
I note Kershel is asking an interesting question here.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any explicit limits or thresholds related to potential losses or negative outcomes that we must not exceed?
Wow, that's a deep question.
Yeah. Kershel, I'm looking to understand this in the context of risk management, but also if you get on the Facebook group, look at developing the SMART objectives, and particularly the R. Is it relevant? Is it realistic? Then look at the A. Is it achievable? Because if you are looking at something that could have really significant losses or negative impacts, something in your risk wasn't looked at properly, and possibly you really, it wasn't realistic when you set it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you understand the setting the SMART goals and managing the risk, you ought not to be in a position where the losses could be that significant.
Yes, the managing the risk is the important point there. And I remember a young person saying to me that she was afraid to think bigger and to think of what she wanted to achieve because her fear was that she would not be able to achieve it. So I said to her, I want you to think big, because it is said that if you can see it, you can achieve it. I want you to think big, but then I want you to go and do a risk register. Anticipate. And the thing about risk, we tend to, that's something I must say about risk. We tend to always think of risk, and generally we think of risk as something in the future that's negative. But in truth and in fact, if the risk is an uncertainty, that uncertainty can be positive. So it can be an opportunity. So by looking ahead, you're not seeing just threats, but you're seeing opportunities. Okay? And that is why the first habit of highly effective people is to be proactive. That is your starting point. And so from the time you decide what it is you're trying to achieve, start thinking of the risk associated with that. And because I think that is going to help you to move forward better. Any other questions?
No, I guess maybe people are still like thinking, maybe their brain is still going, but no one is putting any questions in the chat at this moment.
Okay, what we want to
Yeah.
stress too is this is an action plan. So one of the columns must have these actions, these actionable steps, one by one, things you have to do. And as you do it, you tick it out. And sometimes you need to break down one into further actions, but it's actions, things that can be, it's very important. Sometimes you will see an action plan and you're not seeing an action column. That is not an action plan. Keep that in mind, okay? And that's why we suggest that pre-action planning, which is where you're coming up with strategies. We recommend that, okay?
Oh, Betty, because I think when we had our earlier meetings and seen an action plan, I find sometimes when we see the actions, they don't sound
They're not
concrete.
actionable. They're
No,
not actionable.
it sounds very
Yes.
vague. They give you
Yes.
these vague kind of actions, like
There
how
you
are you
go.
supposed to achieve that? So that's one thing in terms of when you put in actions. Again, it has
Yes.
to be actionable, it has to be doable.
Yes, steps. There's steps,
Yeah.
there's tasks. And it's always the active voice, the active voice. Do this, do that, do this. That's what we do for actions. Very important.
I noticed Lynn Bristol seems to be trying to write something. Is it, Lynn, do you want to put something in the chat?
Lynn, you're too creative for us. You're right.
I see it as if she's doing some stick figures there. So ask Lynn.
But wait a while. Oh, my apology. You know, Binta, what we had to do was to unmute people. My apologies. We needed to unmute you so you could talk to us. So Lynn could talk to us, poor thing. But let me see if I can get this now where I can unmute. Oh boy, this is always a problem, you know. Jackie, I always have that problem where I'm trying to, it is somewhere I can see to allow people
Is it
to.
in host tools?
Well, I'm not, that's right, that's what it was. It was in that, but I'm not even seeing that appearing in the menu. Is anybody seeing it? Brandon, are you seeing it? It was host tools, that's what it was.
Yes, it's there.
Oh, so see, but Binta, maybe you can do it. See if you can allow people to unmute themselves. If you click on
Okay.
it. I completely, for my apologies, people. Our intention was for you to talk to us and we still had you typing. My apology. So we can actually hear from Lynn. You got it, Binta? So it would say allow participants to, and then you would click where it says unmute themselves.
Everyone see that where it says you are. It can give you like an option to unmute.
Yeah.
So
Okay, all
is
right.
it working? Is it working now? Yes. So Lynn, talk to us, Lynn. Oh no, so Roger's hand is up. Roger, is that a thumbs up or Roger? Oh yes. So Roger is telling us it's working.
And Lynn had her hand up.
Lynn, go ahead and talk to us. Our apology. Lynn? Okay, is there anybody else who wants to talk to us? Go right ahead. We would really like to hear your voice. You have been hearing us.
I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
For me, I agree that the actions at the end of creating your action plan must be reasonable and doable. I find too many times that we have a lot of people, especially young people, whether they want to buy a house, land, what have you, they have the idea
Yes.
and they think that, okay, I want to buy a house, I want to do certain things, but it's not concrete.
Yes.
It's just like a thought.
Yes.
And when they realize the steps and the processes of obtaining all of these things, it's like, oh, it's too much. And, they give up. So you have to understand from jump what they have to do.
Yes, thank you, Roger. And it's really again, it's if you can list it, and you know it to me listing is so important. That's why we started by saying it is a document. It's a doc. You see what we were trying to avoid with the muting everybody is that people are talking while we're talking. So yes, Roger, you're very right. Those actionable steps are key, but they must be written down one after the other. And as you accomplish it, you tick it off. Done, done, done. Moving on.
I think a key resource for young people to recognize is time.
Mhm.
They sometimes, I think that is where they become overwhelmed because they set that you've got a lot of years ahead of you, plan it out kind of thing. But sometimes we were in a hurry when we're young, we just want it and we want it now.
Yes.
And so when it doesn't happen, we feel like we failed because we were a little bit unrealistic in the process. But
Yes.
time is a wonderful resource that young people have
Yes.
that they need to pay attention to.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Okay. So at this point, do we move on or we have any other comments or questions? So Binta?
No, we have no other questions or comments in there.
Oh, Denise James has her hand up. Denise James, talk to us.
James. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm back to my comment I made about the different rationale.
Yes.
For one, I realized that when I went back to your notes, that the rationale would be different. Tell me if I'm correct. So correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The rationale would be different from the goal, because I was thinking of a
Yes.
situation where
Yes.
the rationale or the justification for doing something,
Mm-hmm.
I may have 4 different reasons why.
Yes. Yes.
However, the actual thing that I want to do
Mm-hmm.
is the goal.
Yes. You got it. That's right.
Okay.
You got it. That's right. Yes,
Okay.
they can be different whys,
Yes.
but it's all connected to that goal. That's the important thing Jackie was making. There must be a connection. Yes, your rationale can be very, very complex.
Yes, the rationale can come, but then
Yes.
the goal is that
But
that
the goal, yes,
one,
but try to
one
be
thing,
that one thing for the
one
goal.
activity, one
Yes,
action
the
that
one-
you have to
yeah,
do to
well,
accomplish. Okay.
Yeah, so the
Thank you.
goal, right? So the action plan is per goal or per
Yes.
objective.
Thank
But
you.
your whys can vary.
Yes.
But again,
why
all those
that's
whys
right.
have to be connected to the goal.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you. Egbert, talk to us.
Yes, Betty, good night. I'm following
night.
the discussion, and I think one of the things that struck me is that sometimes we forget that each action or activity has a plan for itself.
Yes.
So sometimes we, like you were saying earlier, you have to buy the land.
Yes.
We know we have to go look for it, but we forget in going to look for it to list the activities, and sometimes it
Yes.
overwhelms us.
Yes.
So it's a good thing for us to always remember that each activity has its own
Yes.
paper trail, own
Yes.
list of activities that we must not forget to list and follow.
Yes. Yes. So the activities, first of all, they have to be doable, attainable, but be aware that these activities then have sub-activities. Yes, you're very right. And the more detail you can give, the better. We have to remember what a plan does is it allows continuity in our absence. So if, for instance, that is about you and your family looking for this to buy this piece of land. If, for instance, you're not there, your family can pick up the plan and continue the process. Again, the more detail you give, the better. Yes, Johnny. Talk to us, Johnny.
Good night, Mrs. Comby. How are you?
I am well. Good to see you here.
So, I am going to relate that to my my work.
Yes.
So when you have a strategic plan,
yes,
right? After you've laid out your plan, when
yes,
it comes now to the departments, the
yes,
units within the institution.
yes.
So each department is now going to look at each of the goals, strategic goals.
Yes.
And they're going to pull out what is relevant to their unit.
Yes.
And going to create an action plan.
Yes, you might call it a work program, but yes, that's exactly it. It's an yes. And that's an important point you're making there, that these things have, again, don't get bogged down too much with the terminology, but an action plan is similar to a work plan similar to a work program, because you're seeing the columns are similar. The
They're
headers
right.
for the columns are similar. That's right. Yes, that's right.
Okay. And
That's
each
right.
you and there for particular, so let's just say HR.
Yes.
So it depending on the number of goals that would be related, that they fit in. There
Yes.
would be multiple action plans for each of these.
Yes.
And what struck me too is that would contribute to the planning of the budget.
Yes.
Because
yes.
So maybe there's a particular goal, maybe HR has some part to play in that, and maybe another unit would have some part to play in that.
Yes.
So when each unit would put their costing,
yes,
right, that would add up, and to say for that particular goal, when everybody comes together with their piece, that was what is going to be the total for achieving that goal.
Yes, and that's an important point you made. What you're talking about there is to understand in an organization, you are running a system, and a system involves interactions, right? So things HR is doing is impacting departments, and things HR is doing, it has a financial component. And so you must, and so actually that is another thing you can add to an action plan. You can put down interfacing or interacting either activities or departments or functions. So like I said, this is your basic action plan. And I am very happy you mentioned you related it to, it is similar to a work program or work plan. In the case of the organization, you are linking it to your strategic direction. And that is your why. You answering the why that way. The why for you will be, how is it aligned to our strategic direction?
That's correct.
That's right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes, Lynn.
Lynn's hand is up again.
Lynn, let's hear from you.
Your hand is up still. I hope I can be heard.
Yes, you are hearing you.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Finally. Excuse my language, but my phone is not the best. It's a cheapy phone.
We hear you clearly.
I've been there trying since the time. No, I've been listening, and well, everything that you all are saying, that is part of my planning all the time. And I'm a list person, and I list everything that I could think of.
Yes.
Because well, everything that was said, it makes sense to me. I can relate to just about everything that was said.
Thank you, Lynn. And that's what we have to say. People, we're not teaching you anything that's new, you know. We're just promoting a systematic approach. And it's the definition, it applies to every single thing, including if it's a husband you're trying to get or a wife you're trying to get, including that.
Yes. Yeah, so that's my contribution. Sorry, just that everything, I can relate to everything that is being said. So I have nothing to add and or subtract.
Well, you are confirming, and we love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that confirmation. Yeah, because most of us know how to do it well already. Thank you for sharing that, Lynn. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other questions? Are we okay for us to move on? Okay, Binta, all yours.
Well, again, thank you everybody for the interaction, for the comments. We've posted some links to actually get some templates on action planning, project manager, Asana. And when the presentation is shared with you and the video itself is uploaded to the Facebook pages as well, you will also have access to this information. So yeah, so we can move on to the next. Somebody's hand up? Oh, Ira's hand is up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Good night. Yes. Thank you so much for that, Betty, and the group overall, the team. Now, I want to encourage persons who are here to go to the Facebook group and listen to the other forums. And the reason why I'm saying that is as I'm sitting here as a professional, even in quality improvement, everything from the Plan, Do, Check, Act flowed so smoothly into today's session. And if you think your mind is blown now, that you've been doing the thing all the time, but you may not have had the theoretical parts of what you were doing, the right concepts, when you go back to Plan, Do, Check, Act, it becomes even more, I don't know, it's a flow. It's a beautiful story to see how we are working.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't even see the flow. But once you know the why, you can definitely have the brunt of the how.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ira. Another tool, which is one I promote in my book, which I find is so important, and it's also related to that, is the 6 W's and the 1 H. And if you go through the literature, it will tell you 5 W's, but I tell you it is 6 W's. And it is the why, and we saw that in the action plan, the what, the where, the when, which one I'm missing, Jack? The whom and the who. 2 different things. We were told in primary taught, when we were taught at primary school, we were told the who is the subject and the whom is the object. So who is doing it and for whom are you doing it is very important. That target group. And that's why the target group becomes so important. And then the how. Okay. So it's all, and it's all connected, guys, because work is work. Doesn't matter what type of work you're doing, work is work. And what applies to one work activity applies to any other work activity. Thank you, Ira. And so at this point, we are going now to what's next. So, and it's a lovely time to go on to that because Ira took you back to the previous webinars. And so again, I highly recommend that, especially if you're coming in for the first time, go back to those other webinars in our Facebook group, the GPM Facebook group, and you will see the connection she's talking about because she has been attending the webinars. And so now we go on to what next. And so we are now going to, so this was about improvement tools. That was what, this was simple improvement empowerment tools. We have the background noise. Could somebody address that? Brandon, could you mute somebody? We're hearing.
Yeah, it's Lynn's audio.
Yeah, just you can mute her. You can mute her. Thank you. And so we have completed that series, and now we're delving into specific products and services. And somebody will tell me how to get off. Is everybody seeing the lines Lynn drew on my slide?
Yes.
Lynn, you'll have to tell me how you did that. Anyhow, so we're moving into forums now that we are collaborating now with other persons, specialists, or organizations. And these forums will take a certain format. It will be a 2-part forum. So presentation, there'll be a presentation, and we'll go through this, and then there'll be the open discussion session of that. So this is now targeted. So if this is your area of interest, then you come in. What we want to do in any 1 year, we want to handle both, we call it a soft and a hard product service, or a sexy and a not sexy. So for instance, one of the things we look, for instance, if we do management consultancy as a service for one of the forums, the next forum we're looking at is something like maybe pageantry. And we're starting off with things that we have people who are specialists in already, because it's easiest for us to create that partnership. For instance, next year we want to look at parenting, and then we probably want to look at governance, right? So it's always in any 1 year, we'll be looking at a hard and a soft one, or a sexy and a not so sexy one. But in each of the forums during the presentation, the persons making the presentation, they will talk to the needs and the expectations of the customers or other stakeholders. Again, that target group. Whom are you delivering to? What are their needs and expectations? We will address any laws, if any exist, related to those products and services. We will look at relevant standards and authoritative guidelines. Again, we told you we are supported by the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards, and so our sessions must have value to them as well. And so once there are standards related to the process, we will make mention of those standards. Once we have done that, we will talk about acceptance criteria for the product or service. Remember, the same way with the land, we came up with that criteria. So all products and services have the acceptance criteria. So we will discuss that. We are about our sustainable development. And I stress that, this is not a UN thing. This is our sustainable development. We will reference the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we have stressed sustainable development under the 5 pillars. And the 5 pillars are the planet, the 5 Ps, the planet, the people, prosperity, peace, and partnership. Okay, and so this is how we put, and if you understand those 5 Ps, you can see how it's related to all of us. So it's not longer just an organization thing or a national thing, it is a personal thing that in our lives, right, we need to take into consideration the planet, people, prosperity, peace, and partnership. We will talk to noteworthy happenings, market trends, key players, technological advancements at both the local, regional, and international level. We will look at the value chain, or we call the core business processes related to the product or service. We will talk about associated risks. And we will talk about essential resources if you have to deliver on that product or service. And then the second part of this forum is going to be an open discussion where people are sharing on their successes as well as their issues, and we're sharing lessons learned. So this is the plan going forward. Once we have set up those forums with the collaborating specialist organizations, we will circulate the flyers, but this time we are more targeted, okay? So we would not expect such a diverse group. So you would come if it relates to you. We imagine that's what would be happening. Any questions related to those forums that will be coming up later in 2025 and beyond? Trisha, anything in the chat? Well, at this point, people can talk to us, so you can raise your hand.
No.
Okay, so you can raise your hands to talk to us. Okay. And so, yes, and then we move on to, again, we're encouraging people to come into the active groups right now, the core and the forum group. The plan is we bring in as many people into the forum group with a plan that eventually people will be able to go into the other groups. But it's a movement. The more people we get in, the better. And so that is our approach. Come into the forum group and then eventually we'll start talking about these other groups. So that's where we're at with that. But this is the future network with regard to the GPM. And then we ask you to come in. That's the call. That's the call. Join the group. That's our call. And at this point, I pass you on to Binta or to Trisha.
Okay. At this point, we would like to invite you to connect with us. For those who have not started following our pages yet, you could connect with us through our Facebook group. It's Good Practice Movement, and you could also connect with us via our email, goodpracticemovement@gmail.com. And like Binta said, the presentation would be shared. So if you don't get to take this information now, it would be available in the presentation. Before we end, we would appreciate if everyone could give us some feedback in the chat, just expressing how you enjoyed the seminar. Give us your experience and what you enjoyed about the information that was shared.
Or did not enjoy.
Yes. Patrick Jacob said, "Hi, Betty."
Hi, Patrick. Patrick is coming from Trinidad. And by the way, we got, yes, I'm telling you, when we looked at the registration form, we had people registered from Trinidad and Tobago. We had Jamaica, we had the US, we had Taiwan, we had St. Kitts and Nevis. And so when we started the webinar, we asked people to say where you were coming from. And so I'm not sure how many different countries are represented here, but the registration showed, yeah, that we had a good representation from different places.
We have Davindra said, I came in late, but the interaction was really good. And Roger is saying that the session was very good, a good refresher. Yes, because Betty said a lot of these tools, sometimes we know these things
Yes.
already, but we always need to be continuously learning.
Yes.
And what is else? And Ira, I like Where's Ira own? I like the action plan as a real life personal example that can be transferred to a professional space. Yes, so everyone says engaging. Krista said so. Shanta, there wasn't any unnecessary talking or details, and the session was very informative. Marina is saying it's always good to have these refreshers. Yes, it is, you know. So these are some comments we are having in the chat thus far.
Thank you. So that's all we ask for you to do is to just tell us how the experience was. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like. Again, it's feedback allows us to improve.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Although I didn't come in the beginning, but what was said is very practical. That's how I can put it, practical, and I can relate to it, and I can relate to it on a daily basis. So what I say is just practical, and it just strengthens what we do on a daily basis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we have to start compartmentalizing those tools. All of those tools are applicable to every aspect of our lives. Yeah.
Can I say something? My hand has been up for a while.
Oh, our apology. Go ahead.
Well, unlike Miss Bristol, I have not been a person who write down everything and plan everything in my life. I have a daughter always said to me, Mommy, how you can live without planning so? So far, I've made it through to almost 17. However, I really found this very empowering, this session, and enlightening and empowering. I'm thinking now of all the decisions I have made without planning that I should have planned using an action plan. So I really thank you for that. It was really worth the time attending.
Thank you.
Continue the good work. Thank you to all.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for that comment. We called it the empowerment series for a reason. And to hear people say they feel empowered, that's what we were going for. Yeah. I mean, empowerment is about building your confidence that you can do it, whatever it is you want to do. If you can see it, you can achieve it, and just do it systematically.
We have 2 hands up, Betty. We have, I think, Ira and then Patrick.
Oh, so either one go first. Let's let Patrick go first, and then Ira. Patrick.
Hi, Betty. Okay, I just wanted to say good night, everybody in St. Lucia. I hope St. Lucia is very peaceful and cool and lovely as it is in Trinidad here tonight.
Yes, it is.
Yes, we had some rain earlier today, but the weather has really set down a bit. Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things. One of the main things is that, as usual, Betty, very, very good delivery. And I mean, you put everything in such good language that everybody could understand. I mean, if I had a pet cat or a dog, I'm certain I could ask them, you know, what did Betty talk about tonight? And they could give me a good idea. But that aside, jokes aside, so there are some things that we are not aware of. What makes planning a little difficult is exactly what you're trying to avoid here tonight by giving us the tools. And it may not be just a spreadsheet. How I do my planning, for instance, I recognize that there's a calendar on my phone. That's on the date I could put in the things when bills are due, what I'm supposed to do, what are the deadlines for this, deadlines for that. And you get prompts. I get a prompt 24 hours. Well, the GPM, the action planning meeting was at 6:30 this evening.
Yes.
Right? I was reminded yesterday and I was reminded this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I was not going to miss it. And then the other thing too, I recently recognized too that AI, well, Betty, you actually introduced Devendra, right? When we had our meetings and we had them recorded, AI was able to cut out all the small talk and give us the facts, perfect minutes. AI also helps you to return emails. They structure, they ask you, generally, what do you want to say? And then you have a properly well-structured email going to your customers. So I'm just saying that there are lots of tools, including using these spreadsheets,
Yes.
that are open to most people. And then, of course, you have good old Google.
Yes.
If you're not too sure how to do it, Google it, and Google will give you a good idea of some of the action plans, the easier things that you could do. Because 90% of the time, you're not the first person going to try to realize these goals or plan to do whatever you're going to do.
True.
Several people would have done it before, even if it's buying a home.
Yes.
Several people bought homes before. Several persons bought fuel economy cars, for instance. Several people had to fight cancer, breast cancer. You go online and you see all the lovely plans. You don't have to do it on your own.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Betty.
Thank you so much, Patrick. So we should never have to start from scratch. I keep saying that. Never start from almost everything you have done, somebody has done it before. And beautiful thing is if they documented it. And now we have AI, even better. Thank you, Patrick. And then let's hear from Ira.
Thank you, Betty. I think Patrick alluded a lot to what I wanted to say because I wanted to speak about the monitoring and evaluation aspect of it that came out from the plan, do, check, the checking part of it.
Yes.
And I find many times, Betty, and I just wanted to say when I'm looking at it, the question is always, where is the data gathered? And I see you're going to be mentioning measures soon. So I know we're going to get into that data aspect and capturing for performance measuring. The situation, Betty, is when you don't have that continuous capturing of information over time, because it's a working document. And sometimes just putting a little bulletin points in your action plan as a comments column for a comment can help us to identify the little processes, no matter what, along the way, so that by the time, even if you're not there, somebody else picks up that document, they know the sequences of activities and how it happened, which helps with forecasting, Betty. And so that in its sense is something that I want to mention, and I hope you will bring it out. And some of the things that Patrick mentioned, the use of integrating technology as technical officers, even in our lives, you know, using the availability of what you have already and making the best out of it.
Yes.
Over to you, Betty.
Well
Thanks.
said, Ira. Well said. And like I mentioned, this is a simple thing and like I said, these action plans that we introduce are basic action plans. You can make it more comprehensive to capture exactly what you want. And so having a status column, and especially within an organization, that is so key, because within an organization, it's not just dependent on you. If you're not there tomorrow, the plan has to continue. And so people have to be updated on where we're at, what have we achieved so far, what else has to be done. So the plan can be more comprehensive than what we introduced there to capture all the data that's necessary for the goal objective to be achieved. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Okay, Binta.
I guess that's it. Thank you, everyone. I think we're on time because we say channel of for it. That's good. But I love the comments. I love the interaction. It's been a very interactive and very informative, as everyone keeps saying. And we did have some comments throughout the chats. People are actually again expressing some positivity and that this session is such a refresher to them. And so we'd like to just thank you so very much for attending our session this evening. And I hope that you can attend our sessions coming up, the new series in 2025. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Betty, for a great presentation as usual, very interactive and making everything extremely relatable. And thank you to the team who's there supporting you, Brandon, Trisha, and everyone else, Jackie as well. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And
bye.
Good night to all.
Thanks, Betty, and good night. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.